All right. Well, welcome back to American Soccer Quick Kicks. I'm your host, David Wright. First of all, whoever that is in the room with me, let me know, are you hearing me? Is my microphone working this week? It seems like it's a roll of the dice every single time we do this. But I am excited for tonight's show. This is the AMA episode. John says you can hear me. John, appreciate it. Appreciate you being here. I'm sure we just had someone else jump in. I'm sure we're going to get a few more here very quickly as we get ramped up. Well, whoever it was just disappeared on me. Well, maybe they'll come right back. Anyway, I asked for questions for the last couple of weeks, and I've gotten plenty in, so I know this isn't going to be a disaster. I do have stuff to talk about, but I'm also going to give priority to whoever's live with me in the live chat. I want this to be more of a dialogue than we usually do, and I'm looking forward to covering all of these great topics that have come in. Before we dig into it, though, I want to clean something up from last week. I was talking about the Leagues Cup format, and I think I made the comment that because the top three finishers go to CONCACAF, that meant there would be a semifinal loser that was guaranteed to go, and really only now that they're at the quarterfinal stage, only need to win one match. And that was wrong. That's incorrect. Because I totally forgot. They actually play for third place. There's going to be a third place match. The two semifinal losers will play each other for that third spot. And that's actually a really good thing. Tournaments that have third place matches, it's like, what's the point, right? You're not playing for anything. But in Leagues Cup, you are playing for something. You're playing for a CONCACAF berth, and that means a lot. So we're at the semifinal stage now. The MLS teams swept the quarterfinals. We have nothing but MLS teams in the semis. I have thoughts on whether that's good or bad, but both semifinal matches will be played tomorrow night, and I'm not sure when the third place match will be played, to tell you the truth, but it will be played. It will be contested. The winner of that third place match gets that third berth, and the final is going to be played on Sunday. So by the time I see you again next week, Leagues Cup will be over, and we will have the U.S. players in camp. So that's the two news items. Tomorrow is the Leagues Cup semifinals, but earlier today, this morning, we got a roster announcement for the September camp. We have matches against South Korea and Japan, September 6th and September 9th. And most of the roster came out today. We get a 23-man roster, and 22 of those players were announced. And so that is going to be something we can definitely talk about tonight if you want to. And if you don't, that will be all right, because I'm definitely planning on covering it. Like, we're going to major on the U.S. national team here in this run up to the World Cup. We will be talking about the camp. We'll be talking about the matches. If you're a casual soccer fan, you found my channel and you're following it, but you haven't um, but you haven't been watching the games. Like, I can forgive you if you're not watching MLS, okay? But I encourage you, let's watch these national team games together, okay? We have 3 windows in a row: September, October, November. And after those are done, if what I heard today was right, and I was listening to Alexi Lalas on his podcast, after these 3 consecutive windows are done, we're only going to have 2 more windows before the World Cup. So this fall is an extremely critical time for the U.S. as the coach tries to figure out his roster for the World Cup and tries to make those final decisions. Pure Vibes in the room, definitely be checking into the national games. Pure Vibes, thank you. I don't know you, and that's awesome. I love having you here. I got your comment on last week's video, and I know you said that you want to start watching MLS a little bit more. You're based in New York. Um, I'm going to get into a little bit tonight of maybe what how to do that, how to warm up to MLS. I think there's a lot of soccer fans in this country. There are a lot of soccer fans in this country. We don't have to worry about, is there a critical mass, like, let's talk television audience. Is there a critical mass of soccer fans in this country where a league can be supported on TV? The answer to that is yes. We're way past that. The problem is in generally not watching MLS, right? We're watching everything else, because all these leagues, all the top leagues in the world, are so easily available to us now. But if you're living in New York, it's probably a little hard to go to a Premier League match. It's probably a lot easier to check out an MLS match in person. So as far as I'm concerned, you got soccer, because soccer is so big, it can be very small in the sense that it's local to you wherever you are, whether you're talking about major league, top tier, first flight soccer, or you're talking about a lower division club. There's professional soccer somewhere near you. I promise you. Pull for your local team. Pull for your local team, whether that's major league, lower division. Go to a match, because going to the match, being there in person, there's no substitute for that. And one thing I can say about Major League Soccer is the game day experience that really hooks so many people. You will have fun, I promise you. All right, I'm going to open it up. So I see I've got 3 people in the room with me. This is an AMA. Ask me anything. We're going to keep it focused on American soccer, but ask me anything you want. And if I see a question come up in the chat, that'll be what I give priority. Okay. But I did ask for questions for the last couple of weeks in advance, and I got quite a bit. So unless I see something pop up, I'm just going to start digging into these. Okay. So let me start with, let's just start right here. I had, I'm going to try to attribute these questions to the people that asked them. I don't know if I have, I don't know if I made the proper note for every one of these questions, but coming from Dayton asked me, what are the top 3 rivalries? So that's all the question said. I'm not quite sure what he had in mind when he asked that, in terms of, are we talking about in the world, or are we talking about just in international play? But I am going to choose to look at this through the lens of American soccer. Okay. And so I would say that the top 3 rivalries that we have would be, number 1, USA versus Mexico. That's easy, right? And then if you look at Major League Soccer, I'd say the number 1 rivalry in Major League Soccer is El Trafico. That's the LA Galaxy versus LAFC. Those games are always highly entertaining, generally high scoring. It doesn't seem to matter if one of the clubs is having a bad year. Those matches are always a lot of fun. And then I would say the third rivalry would be Hell is Real. That is Cincinnati versus Columbus. Ohio kind of setting the pace for the league. Both teams are among the very best in the entire league. And when they play each other, like, it goes all out. It's everything you want in a rivalry match. So that's my answer to that. I'm just going to keep going here unless I see somebody pop up with a question live. I'm going to keep going with what I have here. So I have this one, and this one's a little. This is one we can dig into a little bit. I had Chuck ask me, what's one thing that new fans misunderstand about soccer tactics? Okay, so I believe, if I have this right, Chuck is someone who will watch English Premier League. He's a fan of Premier League. He's American, but he doesn't watch a lot of Major League Soccer. But I don't know how into the sport he is. He's asking me this question: what's one thing new fans misunderstand about soccer tactics? Well, first of all, if y'all want to give your takes on that, throw them in the chat. That's fine. I'd love to hear it. I would say the one thing that new fans miss probably is the fact that teams don't always want the ball. Sometimes it is a tactical choice to play against the ball, which means you, on purpose, by game plan, concede possession, and you're just focused on playing on defense and also looking to spring quick counterattacks. So, and sometimes you're doing that because you feel like you're the underdog and you just got to focus on defense and just hold on for dear life. Other times it just fits the skill set of the players that you have, where you realize that you're better on the break, you're better in transition. And so you just want to sit back and look for those opportunities, jump on a miscue by your opponent, and then turn quickly up the field and look for opportunities in the transition moments. So I would say that's probably, well, for new fans, that's something they miss. They might look at time of possession and think, oh man, this team dominated. Not necessarily. If it's a tactical choice on the part of the other team, they could still very much be in control of the match, but just without the ball. So that is That's about the only thing I can think of where you're missing it, right? You might not be able to see it. But if also, what I would tell you is if you're a new fan and you're trying to, if you're a new fan and you want to get into it, I understand that if you don't understand the action that's going on, it can look kind of random. Like there's just 20 guys running around randomly all over the field. But there actually is logic to what you're watching. And I would say so a couple of things is you want to look at the shape of the team, the formation they're playing. Okay. And so, for example, so when you name the formation, you start with the defensive line, then the midfielders, and the forward. So if you're playing a 4-4-2, that's four defenders, four midfielders, and two forwards. Okay. You might play a 4-2-3-1. You might play a 3-5-2. So you look at the formation, also known as the shape, and you also want to look at the line of confrontation. Where is the team choosing to begin to put defensive pressure on the ball? Are you playing in a low block? Kind of, it's called parking the bus, where you just got everybody on your team playing defense, and you're packed in tight. And generally, in that situation, the other team has free run to get all the way into their attacking third of the field, your defensive third. But what you do is you're making yourself very tough to break down. You're covering every angle, and it's really hard for an attacking team to break that down. You might be playing a mid block where you're picking them up more at midfield, or you might be playing a high press where you're still on your attacking third of the field, way up the field, and you're not giving them any chance to move the ball up easily. You're on it right away. So by the time you look at their shape and their line of confrontation, you got a pretty good idea of how they're playing. And so if you keep that in mind, you can probably start to discern a little bit of what you're watching. That's where I'd start. If you're a new fan, that's where I'd start. Let's see what we have going on in the chat. Passing the ball back all the way to the keeper, and certain tactics are dictated by skill set. Yeah. So I'll speak to what John said. Negative passes, which simply means backwards passes, are not a bad thing. Okay, you got to quit thinking like American football. This isn't about progressing. It's not like every inch forward is what matters. Like anything backwards is a problem. You just want to keep possession. You got to move the ball to where the space that's available, and a lot of times that means passing the ball back. It's okay. Okay, it's more important to have that possession. And if you're moving the ball around the field, you're also pulling that defense apart, or forcing them to move to different parts of the field. You're creating space in other places, and then you can look for where to play the ball after that. So, and that goes for the goalkeeper too. A lot of times, kicking back to the goalkeeper is the safest option. He's going to have the most space around him, and he's got the best view of the field, and it helps you just kind of recycle possession and get started again. So, absolutely nothing wrong with negative passes. Yeah, it's about making space. I've said this before, Pure Vibes on my channel, where American football is a game of distance, soccer is a game of space. It's about recognizing space. It's about recognizing it, creating it, exploiting it. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to play the ball long if that's where the space is. Okay. So, and a lot of times that space might be small, but it's big enough. If you're playing in tight spaces, what you should be seeing is players without the ball moving into places to create passing lanes, create angles for the guy that has the ball. So, all right, let's see. I'll keep going. Is this? Let me know if I'm going too fast or if you want me to slow down any. But I've got a lot here that I want to get through. Professional keep away. Let's see here. I've got another one from Chuck. Chuck's in the room. So Chuck, if you want to just shoot these at me live, I'll give you a chance to do that. One thing that I had this. Okay, I have a question here. It's a little bit about history of American soccer, and I want to go ahead and jump to this because it's just it's something that I remember very well. And the question, let me see if I can find it now, is I believe it was Larry, wanted to know how did we end up being awarded the 1994 World Cup at a time when we didn't even have a top tier professional league in this country. yet we ended up being given the World Cup in 1994. How did that even happen? I want to dig into that a little bit. So I don't need to tell Larry this. I know he knows this. There was a top flight professional soccer league in America before Major League Soccer. It was the NASL, North American Soccer League. It existed from, I believe, 1968 to 1984. It hit its peak in probably the mid late 70s. This is when you had Pele playing for the New York Cosmos and Franz Beckenbauer with the New York Cosmos. And they were regularly pulling in 70, 80,000 fans a game. It was an exciting time, but it quickly fell apart. Like in the 80s, the bottom fell out, teams started folding, it collapsed, it got very small very quickly, and the whole league kind of petered out by 1984. So after 84, there was no top flight professional league. We barely had a national program. Our senior national team was comprised mainly of college all-stars and like indoor soccer guys. And we didn't play very many matches at all. Maybe 2 or 3 or 4 a year, and that's about it. And we weren't making World Cups. We weren't qualifying for World Cups. And yet we wanted to host. We were putting in bids to host a World Cup. And obviously we have to be, at that time, had to be a very attractive target market for FIFA, a country this big that needed to grow as a soccer nation. It was an untapped market as far as FIFA was concerned. So quite simply, to shorten this, is we, in our bid for the 94 World Cup, we made it a stipulation. We promised that we would launch a new league, and we would use the bump in popularity and attention that the sport would get to create a new league and get that going. And that was a big part of what FIFA did of what led FIFA to give us the 94 Cup. The decision was made, I believe, in 1988, which is huge because we didn't qualify for the 90 World Cup until 89. But anyway, that was a part of our promise. We promised FIFA we would start a league if you gave us the World Cup. And that's exactly what happened. We were a little slow getting out of the gate. The first season of Major League Soccer wasn't until 1996. The league was incorporated in 93, but it took them that long to get it going. And when the league started, there were only 8 teams, but they were seeded with guys from our 94 World Cup team. So if you followed the World Cup in 94, you followed the U.S. team, there were names on that team that you recognized that were now spread all over the league. And so that's how and why it got started. And here we are 30 years later, 31 years later, and the league is healthier than ever. And we're about to host another World Cup. So I think the hope and the prayer and the wish has been for the last several years that, I mean, think about what an astronomical jump the 94 World Cup represents for for American soccer, from what we had before during those wasteland years between the NASL and MLS to where we are now. It's a huge jump. Could we get the same order of magnitude from hosting the next World Cup? We would hope that we could. I have a lot of reasons where I'm a little skeptical that's going to happen at this point, but obviously it's a big deal, and there's an opportunity to leverage what's going to happen next year in this country to make the league even stronger. Whether or not that happens, obviously remains to be seen. Let's see. Chuck says, I don't get when you can substitute in players. Okay. I thought at first it was like hockey, but it seems to need certain conditions. Yeah. All right. I'll go into that. I know that's one you had sent me before. I'll be glad to do that. Subs and Pure Vibes answering subs can be made anytime. It's up to the manager, usually made because of tactical adjustment or an injury. So before the pandemic, you were allowed 3 substitutions a game. And once you come out of the game, you can never go back in. And it's not what do you call it in hockey? Free substitution, whatever. Play does have to stop. It can't be during the flow of play. A sub will go to the 4th official, which is at the mid stripe between the benches, report in, and he'll make a note, get the light board ready, whatever. And then at the next stoppage of, it has to be a stoppage in play and the referee's discretion, which he's usually, there has to be a reason why he doesn't allow the sub, but sometimes he doesn't. But there has to be a stoppage in play. They're on headsets. So the main official knows, the center referee knows that there's a sub wanting to come in, and he'll stop and wave them in and give everybody a chance to get back on the field. So the kind of the exception to that is if a player comes off the field temporarily, tended to for an injury, and you don't sub in for him, you can return to the game if you have not subbed in for him. So in other words, while you're out being tended to, your team is playing a man short, then you can come back in, and the play doesn't have to stop for that. You'll come in at the referee's discretion. He'll wave you onto the field without play stopping. I think he generally tries to do that at a time where you entering the field doesn't suddenly give a competitive advantage to your team. You know, you don't want to ambush the other team like that. But anyway, I said all that happened before the pandemic. I guess it was during or just coming out of the pandemic, they changed the rules a little bit to where you can sub in up to 5 people. But the twist is that you still only get 3 windows to do that. And they've kept that substitution rule in place. So you can now sub up to 5 people in a game. That's like half the field players, but you still only get 3 opportunities. So if you're going to use all your subs, at some point you're going to have to double up. You're going to make more than one sub at a time. You can use halftime to make a change and not use one of those windows. But anyway, Chuck, I hope that answers it. If that doesn't answer it fully, please let me know. All right, let's see. What else do we have here? I got thoughts on pro rail in the U.S. and would it backfire? Okay. So everybody knows what promotion relegation is, right? It's used in vast majority of leagues around the world. It's all over Europe, where you have vertical movement between levels of play for clubs based on merit, based on how well they do or how poorly they do. Let's see. Moros 115 says it would definitely be interesting to see NBA type substitutions. Maurice, did I have a comment from you last week talking about what can MLS do to attract the existing soccer fans? Was that you? I think it was. But let's see what I was talking about. Pro Rail. So, do I think it'll work in the U.S.? All right. Oh, okay. Awesome. I will get to that. I definitely have some thoughts on that. But let me talk about Pro Rail real first. Love to know what y'all think. Here's what I think. Can it succeed in the U.S. or will it backfire? Well, I think that depends on your level of success. Like we know that USL is planning on implementing Pro Rail. Like they are looking to launch a first division league soon, within a couple of years. And when they do that, they're going to have, it's still a closed system. It's not a European style open system, but they're going to have Pro Rail across 3 levels. They're the yet non-existent USL Premier League, let's call it the top tier. Then the USL Championship, which they have now, and then at the 3rd tier would be USL League One. And I think that'll work for them. Like I think it will be something that attracts fans, that adds interest. That's something unique to the American sporting landscape, and their business model is sustainable and it'll work, and that will be a success. If you're asking if I think it would work at Major League Soccer level, I just don't think it's realistic. I don't think we should ever expect that. I think it'd be too problematic to ever try to implement it because you've got millionaire owners who have spent hundreds of millions of dollars to buy a franchise, $300 million, $400 million, $500 million. And I don't see any of them be willing to put that type of investment at risk and opening the door for some lower division clubs who haven't had that kind of investment. I just don't think it's possible. We're just not set up that way. Do I think it would succeed or not? I don't know. I mean, for an American sports fan who doesn't follow soccer, think about this. What if the bottom 2 finishers in the NFL, like who was it last year? Like, I'm assuming Cleveland, probably Tennessee. What if they got demoted to the Canadian League the next year? And like whoever was in the Grey Cup, like Edmonton, Winnipeg, I think whoever it was, they made it. They got moved to the NFL the following year. They switched places with the bottom two finishers. Maybe the bottom two finishers in Canada go down to arena league football. I mean, that'd be wild. But can you see? I mean, it would be fun from a fan perspective. That'd be kind of fun. But realistically, do you see ownership like voting for that and like letting that happen? I just don't think it's possible. But do I think it can succeed? Look, soccer fans, soccer purists will tell you that you have to have pro rel. That's the true spirit of the game, and will never succeed without it. I don't think the life or death of the sport in this country depends on having pro rel. I don't think that. Am I against pro rel? No, I think it can be a lot of fun. And if USL can implement it, I'm going to have a lot of fun following that. But I just, I don't think just the way MLS was built and the way it was structured and the way, how, owners have bought in and stuff like that. I don't think that's ever going to be realistic. What I love about USL and really all the lower divisions is that the barrier for entry is a lot lower. Like you don't have to have hundreds of millions of dollars. And at the lowest level, you can really start at a grassroots community level. And all you have to do is win your games, right? So there's a lot of appeal for that. In a true open system, anybody can go start a club. And if you win enough, you'll end up in the Premier League. I mean, that's the romance of it, right? That's the fairy tale. That's the dream that's put out there that's available to anybody. There are no plans for that to ever happen in the U.S. Maybe it will one day. No one's thinking like that. But right now, the best we can, pro rel enthusiasts should be rooting for the USL to be able to implement their plans because that's the best shot we're going to have. Morrow says, I think it can definitely succeed without it. The evidence is there for America sports. U.S. is playoff driven. Yeah. So let me talk about that. Thanks, John. People will say, so, for example, with the Premier League, there's no playoff, right? There's no postseason tournament that ends in a Super Bowl type final. You play your league table, and whoever's on the top of it at the end of the season is your champion. Okay, well, how are you creating interest down the stretch? Well, it's pro rel, right? And you've got the top spots are going to be going to Champions League, and so that's what they're competing for. And the bottom spots are looking to avoid being dropped down to the championship. And so you're creating real stakes up and down the table. Even though you're late in the season and some people have no chance at winning the league, that there are still real stakes there, and it creates interest there. All right, still, across the whole league for the whole season. We don't have that, but we do have the playoff line. Like because we have playoffs, there's a cutoff for the playoffs, and you might be at the top of the table trying to win the Supporter Shield, but just like there's interest to avoid relegation in other leagues, here there's interest lower in the table to see if you make the playoffs or not. And so I feel like, because we have playoffs, we get those stakes lower down the table and we're fine. I mean, that's just the American system. And there are, people, they're called Euro snobs, where it's like if anything that's different from European soccer is evident that we have an inferior brand of the sport. And, I don't necessarily buy that. I mean, inferior, you can talk about level of play, quality of player, pay structure. I get it. But whether something's pro rel or not, whether you get playoffs or not, that doesn't speak to the quality of the league. And I think it's not inferior. Those types of things, not inferior. They're just different. And that's just the American brand of the game. All right. Pure Vibes is out of here. Listen, we're going to be watching all these matches. We got, I believe, 2 each in September, October, November. And I hope everybody will just follow along with me, and we'll be chatting every week during all that time. All right, let's see. Was there one up further ahead? Did I miss one? That I said I was going to come back to one, didn't I? Do you know if it will be a buy-in system or can anyone just start up a team and try to promote from the very bottom? So Morose is asking, I guess you're asking about the USL Pro Rail system. Is it a buy-in system or can anyone start? Like the way you worded that, I believe you would have to call it a buy-in system. It's not going to be a true open system. It's still going to be closed within the USL ecosystem. But USL, if they can implement their plans, they will have. They already have professional leagues in the second and third tier, and they have a amateur level below that. They want to launch a top tier league within the next couple of years. And if they can get that, then they're going to implement Pro Rail between their three tiers that they have. And that's it. So you'd have to buy in, but you could buy in at the lowest level, which is the third tier of professional soccer. The buy-in would be low, I mean, relatively speaking, but I don't think it's not going to be open. It's not going to be open to like just grassroots, start your own club and see what happens. It's not going to be like that. All right. I feel like I said I was going to come back to a question and I can't remember now what it was. So y'all have to help me out with that. If there's something I said I was going to get back to, I'm going to keep going. All right. This question was a little tough for me. I decided to try to figure it out. The question was, who is the most entertaining player in the world right now? Well, I mean, that takes it outside of American soccer, doesn't it? So who is the best player in the world? The reason I have this channel is because I really only follow American soccer. I follow Major League Soccer and I follow the U.S. men, and that's it. So I had to look all this stuff up, but I can tell you that, and this is a name that, despite the fact that I don't really follow European football, it's a name that I've already heard before, and that is Lamine Yamal, who is a teenager who plays for Barcelona, and he plays for Spain. Like, he's already had senior team caps for Spain, and he's, by all accounts, extremely entertaining, really strong on the ball, second coming of Messi and all that kind of stuff. He's just like 16, 17 years old. Someone in the chat probably is more familiar with him than I am. Lamine Yamal. You can also look at Vinicius Jr., I think is how you say it. He's Brazilian. He plays for Real Madrid. We saw him playing in the Club World Cup. These are two of the names that I'm aware of, but my perspective is limited because I'm really focused on the American sports, on the American version of the game. So, Morose, I'm going to go ahead and take your question, which I believe you said, what can MLS do to appeal to the existing soccer fans? That's a lot. There's a lot there. So first of all, to me, it's easy for me because I am not someone who needs to be following the very best league in the world. I want to be following a league that I can feel some stake in, that I can feel like I'm participating in. So I'm just gonna, like, even though, Man City versus Chelsea is some, awesome matchup that everybody around the world wants to watch, I don't have any connection to those teams or to any of the teams they play against. And it's on the other side of the world. And it's like, I can't get into it. But I am someone who was living in Georgia. I grew up as an Atlanta sports fan for all the sports. I was there for Atlanta United's very first match. I was there in attendance. Then moved to Tennessee just before Nashville joined the club. And I was at their very first match ever. And so I feel a lot more connected to this league. It's ours. It might not be the best in the world, but it's the one we have. So it's easy for me to say, this is the league I'm going to follow because I've got teams that I'm rooting for. I am familiar with players on multiple teams. And, you have a couple of clubs in the table that you want to see do well, then other matchups around the league affect where you are in the standings. You know how it is. So to me, it's easy, but that's not your question. The question is, what can MLS do? Because it doesn't matter. And you're right. And it doesn't matter how big of a soccer fan you are under no obligation to watch MLS, right? So they launched MLS thinking, oh, the '94 World Cup is gonna create fans in this country, and we're gonna have a product for them. And but the plot twist they could not foresee in 1994 was that technology would evolve to the point where it would actually become very easy for soccer fans in America to watch any league they want to around the world. And so suddenly MLS is competing with the Premier League and Bundesliga and Serie A and Liga MX for eyeballs, right? For viewers. And like I said at the beginning, there is a critical mass of of a soccer television audience in this country. They're just watching other leagues, not Major League Soccer, and you're not obligated to watch them. I mean, Major League Soccer is my choice, but just because you're an American doesn't mean you have to. And so it is only Major League Soccer's responsibility to create a product that's compelling enough that's going to make you want to watch them. Now, for me, it's easy to want to watch them, but what can Major League Soccer do to be more compelling? Well, the bottom line is you got to improve the quality on the field. You have to be able to afford, on average, higher caliber players in the league. It's still a salary capped league, and each club has 3 designated player roster spots, which means they max out at a certain number against the salary cap, and then beyond that, you can pay them whatever you want. But you can only do that with 3 players on your team. And so payrolls are very top heavy for the stars, and you can have somebody making $6 million on your club playing next to a kid who's making 80,000. And so, um, we're still very hampered. Like MLS has a lot of very restrictive roster rules that hold us back, and that's by design. And what you have, I mean, so first of all, I understand why you have a very conservative like salary cap and restrictive spending rules and stuff like that for the first phase of the league's existence. I mean, there was no guarantee Major League Soccer was going to make it, stay solvent, stay in business. And what happened to NASL, the reason they went out of business is because of uncontrolled spending, and they just kind of lost it, right? So I feel like MLS did the right thing in order to make sure we survived. I also feel like it's time to take the chains off and let us loose. There are all kinds of numbers of ambitious owners that want to spend the money and want to build up their club and want to build up the league. And the conservative owners who don't care about that stuff and just want to protect their investment are voting no against all that stuff, voting against the changes. And so we're having the least ambitious owners in the league set the pace for the entire league. And I would like to see that change. We need to get the most ambitious ones. We need the opposite of that. We need, instead of the least ambitious, we need the most ambitious owners setting the pace and going out there. And I think when you sign somebody like Messi, who's obviously late in his career, but he's the biggest draw in the world, biggest name in the world. I think that was the opportunity to let go of a lot of these spending restrictions, because with the Apple TV deal, and we can debate that too, whether that was a good move or a bad move. But one thing you can say about the Apple having it on Apple is that you're now able to reach a global audience. This isn't just, Fox Sports. This is something that is available to anybody in the world. And so what if you weren't worried about playing to an American television audience and you were playing to a global television audience? To me, there's an opportunity there to spend big, and to put Major League Soccer way up, on its profile, on its quality, on its ambition, and the league's holding itself back. What can MLS do? They can decide that they're going to let owners spend. And it's time to take the restrictor plate off and let the owners want to do it. There are owners that want to do it, and they're being held back. I can tell you this: if you go to a match, unless you're going to the home match of a team that's really bad, has been bad for a long time, and they're not drawing crowds. Like I'm thinking like DC United, and honestly, this year, Atlanta United. I was actually just at that game, and Sunday it was a very empty house. If you go to a match where most matches are 80-90% or above capacity crowd, and the energy and the excitement is infectious. The game day experience is the best thing MLS has to sell itself to fans. Just go to a game. I can just about guarantee you will have a blast. So that's about all I can say for that. Let's see what we got going on. Need to raise the salary cap. Perfect time for the World Cup is coming. Yeah, that's probably the subject for a future video. They had an opportunity to change the rules, change these roster rules, and they did make recent changes, but they weren't what we wanted. There's very specific columns where you can spend money. Like roster builds are very structured. You have this many roster spots where the salary range is this, and then you've got so many other roster spots where the salary range is that. And what I would like to see is raise the salary cap. Still have one, okay? You still have a salary cap, but raise it and get rid of the columns and just say, here's your money. Go build your team. Because right now, by regulations, by league regulations, teams are forced to have top-heavy payrolls. All your money is going to the top 2 or 3 guys. And if you miss on those guys, or if they get hurt, what are you going to do? Right? The other thing that happens is, of course, you're going to spend money on the flashy attackers. And so the quality of defense across the league is fairly low because that's not where you're going to spend your money. And that could have ramifications for the national team. Like you're trying, I mean, one thing we saw in today's roster is, we're calling in a lot of MLS players to play defense for the United States of America when they're playing in Major League Soccer, a league that by design is not going to have strong defenders in it. It's just not where you're going to find them. And so there's ripple effects there. I feel like there's a whole lot more we can go in with that. Now I might make that a topic of a future video. Leave a comment later and remind me of that. We can dig into that a lot more in the future. We need the Trailblazer owners to get control. Absolutely. Esmeralda Lopez, welcome to the chat. What do you think about the MNT roster? I was waiting for somebody to ask me that, specifically with the inclusion of players that did not want to play in the World Cup. And then Morose says the roster pick was wild, to be honest. Okay. There's a lot here. As far as who did not want to be in the World Cup, Gold Cup, as far as I know, the only players that opted out just because, okay, there were some that missed for injury, and there were some that missed because they had an opportunity to play in the Club World Cup, which I get, although I don't know if they played very much. But there were 2 players who just didn't want to come in, and that was Yunus Musah and Christian Pulisic. And of those 2 guys, Pulisic is on the roster. Musah is not. It should be said first, there's going to be a 23-man roster for this camp, and only 22 players were announced today. So there's still one more spot up for grabs. I don't know if Pochettino has a strong idea already of who that's going to be, but we don't know who it is yet. But let's assume Musah is not in this roster. Of course, Pulisic thing has been played out publicly. It's been a controversy. We've seen the debates back and forth, people blasting each other online. And there was some speculation that maybe Pochettino would use this first window to kind of send a message to Pulisic by not inviting him in, not giving him the call. And I think a lot of people were expecting that. And honestly, I would not have been surprised if that had happened. But also maybe if he had done that, then that's all anybody would talk about. Like it could be to the point of a distraction for the team during this camp. So what I think has happened instead, and the way I hope it plays out at this point, is that, okay, Pulisic, you said you wanted your time off to rest up. Well, you got that. Guess what? You're going in. Like I want to see Pulisic You just plug him right into the starting 11. He plays the full 90, and he better play hard. He better bring it all. If there's any perception at all that Pulisic's playing soft, he's not fully committed. I mean, you know what I mean? Like Pochettino's putting it all on him. The ball's in his court. Prove it. Show us what you got. You got your break. Now what are you going to do? And I tell you what, if we don't see the buy-in from Pulisic, we don't see the effort from him, I'm fine if we never call him in again. I think this is going to be a huge window for Pulisic to prove where his heart is when it comes to representing his country. As for Musa, and Musa was the one other that just opted out of the Gold Cup, and he's not on this roster. I think that says a lot. At this point, I think he's out of the picture. I don't think he's being considered. I don't think we're going to see Musa play in the World Cup. I don't think we are. There's somebody else who's also missing that I think represents. He's probably on the outside looking in. That's going to be Gio Reyna. I want to go ahead and mention this. I was talking last week on this video about how there were two players I wanted to see that needed to make moves in order to have a shot at the World Cup roster. Those two players were Matt Turner and Gio Reyna. And a week ago, Gio had not had a club move. He was still at Dortmund in the Bundesliga. And Matt Turner did indeed get his move. He has come back to MLS. He's once again with the Revolution. He's been playing well. I fully expected to see him on this roster. He is not on this roster. We can talk about the goalkeepers in just a second. I was surprised to see him not there. But in the last week, it looked like Reyna was going to be going to Italy to play for Parma. But then Borussia Mönchengladbach stepped in with a matching offer, and he's decided to stay in Germany. And so he's making the move to Mönchengladbach. I hope I said that right. And obviously, the thought behind this move is going to be an increase in minutes. So we'll see if that happens. But I think Reyna is going to have to really earn his spot. I think he's on the outside looking in. I don't know if we're going to see him. I got a lot I can do. We don't have to go deep into the U.S. roster tonight because we're going to major on that next week. Okay. But I'm not shutting it down. If you want to talk more about it, just ask me another question. I'll be glad to get into it. But you said, Esmeralda, you asked specifically about the inclusion of players that did not want to be in the Gold Cup. I would also say, look at the players that did play in the Gold Cup and look how many of them are on this roster. I think Pochettino is giving a tremendous amount of weight to the guys that he had this summer. And whether that's good or bad, I mean, it's got a lot of people wringing their hands. There's a lot of anxiety among U.S. national team fans of how we're going to possibly be ready in time for the World Cup. This roster, I don't think, is doing anything to give anybody any added confidence. And when you look at that midfield group, it is basically the Gold Cup group in the midfield that had trouble with, like, CONCACAF opponents. We're about to go up against Korea and Japan. Both of them highly technical midfields. Both of them are countries that advanced out of the group stage of the last World Cup. I think we are going to be at a massive disadvantage in the midfield for these two matches. I don't see how, every midfielder we have plays in Major League Soccer except for Tyler Adams. And I don't see how we're going to have a chance against the midfields of either Korea or Japan. But I think, I think one thing that's clear about Pochettino is that he doesn't mind giving weight to Major League Soccer. He's the 22 players announced, 12 of them play in Major League Soccer. There's a popular conspiracy theory with every roster that comes out that the national team coach, national team manager has some sort of obligation to field a certain number of Major League Soccer players, or else he's just doing whatever Don Garber, the league commissioner, wants him to do. I don't necessarily buy into any of that, but it also does seem like Pochettino is perhaps overvaluing playing in Major League Soccer. I love the league, and it's a lot of fun. It's crazy. It's very competitive, right? Every match can be entertaining. But when you're talking about the caliber of players, if you're good enough, you're going to get looked at by European clubs. And so if you're if you've only ever played a Major League Soccer, then you've never rated a look from Europe. You're probably not among the best that we have. You're probably not the best option. And I I feel like Pochettino's not considering that. Like he's overvaluing MLS. And I think a lot of people agree with that assessment. It's um I don't know. It's I've got a lot of concerns. I've got a lot of concerns. I want to keep rolling forward on that unless somebody wants to change the topic on me. Um, for example, in the Gold Cup, we saw Max Arfston, who is a winger for Columbus, playing at fullback for the United States, and he was not good. He was not good on defense. He was good in the attack. I think he scored a goal one game, but he was a liability on defense. As a matter of fact, to the extent that I think he took Diego Luna out of the game plan on that final against Mexico, because Luna was having to drop back and cover for him defensively, and Luna had been one of our best weapons in the tournament. And once again, the way this roster breaks down, it looks like he's got Max Arfston as a fullback, and I just don't see how that's going to work out for us. And we got a couple of guys on defense here have never been capped before. Nathan Harriel was somebody who's like a young, like homegrown player, plays for Philadelphia. He was terrible in the Gold Cup. He played a few minutes in one game and never saw the field again. I mean, I don't understand why he's here. Johnny Cardoso is someone. He's one of those guys. Remember, we talked about it this summer. He's a great player for the club, and he's never done much for the national team. But he's actually a great player. Like he just got to move to Atletico Madrid, and he's starting for Atletico Madrid, and he's playing well. And Pochettino actually made the trip to Spain this past week and watched him play in person, and he's not on this roster. And instead we have Major League Soccer defenders that are taking up roster spots. And like I told you a second ago, the way our league is built and structured with the spending and top heavy and focusing on attack, you're not going to get great defenders, generally speaking, in this league because that's not where the money's being spent. So there's a lot about this roster that really has me scratching my head. There's a lot that I don't understand. It seems as though Pochettino's assessment of players is not his strong suit. It's hard for me to believe that's really true. I have to trust he knows more about soccer than I do. He must be seeing something I don't. But I tell you what, if we don't see success on the field, he's going to come under heavy fire for his player selection. I mean, he's our manager. We're going to do what he says. But if it doesn't work out, like, when we're reassessing what went wrong, I think the first thing on the list is going to be player assessment and roster selection. At this point, I wonder if it was wiser to have kept Berhalter. At least he knew the player pool already. Yeah. So we were talking about this a little bit, Moros, at the when the Gold Cup was getting started, because before the Gold Cup started, we had lost 4 in a row, I think it was, and we had not lost that many consecutive games, like in a very long time, like 7 or 8 years, and I think he had only won Pochettino only won 5 out of his first 10 matches, and that's a exercise in futility that you'd have to go back to the 80s to match that in U.S. soccer history. It was really, really bad. And so then we're looking at his player selection, which seems to be a weakness of his, which shocks me to even say that. But yeah, would Berhalter have been a better choice? I don't know. We had a pretty good run in Gold Cup, although we caught a lot of breaks, right? We didn't have to play Canada, right? And a Costa Rica team that was suffering from both injuries and suspensions. So the criticism against Berhalter was that it felt as if the culture had gotten very lax, and maybe he wasn't a tough enough coach, and there were players that were too comfortable in their spot on the team and kind of took it for granted, right? Or maybe the players are running the show just a little too much. And what we were hoping with Pochettino is he'd come in and toughen things up a little bit. Well, what happened? People quit showing up to camp. Oh, well, you're not, you're going to be mean to me. I'm not going to, I don't know. That's how it looked, right? That suddenly the players, it appeared as if the players didn't want to play for a tougher coach and they were willing to just sit out camps. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's really happening, but it certainly appears like there's a culture problem surrounding the national team. And one thing that I think he has done, and it's absolutely the right thing to do, and that is to open up every spot on the team to competition. Like everybody has to earn their spot, and nobody's job is guaranteed. And you have to treat it that way, right? If you want to get your best 11 out there, then nobody can be too comfortable thinking that they don't have to work too hard for their spot. And that apparently has taken some mental adjustment on some of our top players. Weston McKennie, not on this roster, not injured. Probably, given his personality, I mean, I'm speculating. I probably shouldn't do this, but it seems like it's hard to see McKennie's absence as anything other than either a punishment or just sending some sort of message, because there's no sporting reason for him not to be here. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of personality. I don't know if personality conflict is the right word. There's a lot of power dynamic being fought over. Who's going to emerge dominant, right? So if you remember Pulisic, it came out later that Pulisic said that he offered to show up for the friendlies in the warm up to the Gold Cup, but he just didn't want to do the Gold Cup. Like, I will grace you with my presence for the friendlies. And Pochettino is like not accepting his terms. Like, no, I'm the manager. I want you here for the Gold Cup too. If you can't be bothered for that, just stay home. So there's a little bit of back and forth of like who's actually in charge, who's calling the shots. So, what's going to remain interesting for every single window, all the way up through the World Cup, is this whole soap opera of personalities, of power dynamics, player selection, roster selection, who starts, who gets minutes, who doesn't. It's going to be a whole drama. All right, let me see. Anything else in the chat? So I've got one here that says there seem to be multiple World Cups. How many are there, and how does one qualify? Well, there's not really a lot of World Cups. You have what I call the World Cup, right? It's the men's World Cup, and I don't think I need to explain what that is. Everybody knows what that is. You do have the Women's World Cup, also played every 4 years. Not the same years, obviously. And that's really it. The Men's World Cup, the Women's World Cup. And just to make things a little bit confusing, you do have the tournament that they call the Club World Cup. And the difference there is pretty obvious. You're talking about clubs instead of countries. And it's the Club World Cup is a tournament of, but by the way, this year's format was the first of its kind. This is a newly expanded format. I love it. I thought it was awesome. I want to see it continue. But you basically have to win your Confederation Championship, right? You have to win Champions League for the part of the world that you're in. And then they take 4 years worth of Champions League champions from all over the world, and you play in the World Cup. That's how you qualify for it. That's the short answer. For the World Cup, it's a 2-year qualification process. Each confederation gets a certain number of allotments, certain number of berths. And so each confederation has to come up with their qualification schedule for who competes for those and who ends up winning those berths. It's probably a little too complicated to try to get into now, and I'd have to do the research on like what the qualifications process is for each of the confederations around the world. But it's also weighted. Like Europe gets the most, right? CONCACAF has generally gotten 3 in the past, and I think there's one extra spot that's up for grabs between CONCACAF and Asia, or Oceania or something like that. So sometimes you have a shot at getting a 4th one. This next World Cup, is kind of throws all that up in the air. We're expanding to 48 teams. It's being hosted by 3 different nations, all of whom automatically qualify. So because the U.S. is not having to qualify this time, I'm not really following it too much because this is American soccer, quick games. Um, but I can say that I think not having a qualification schedule makes things harder for us in terms of preparation. Where it is tougher to find good competition because everybody's busy playing their qualification matches. And we are out of competitive matches. Like the Gold Cup was it. So the only matches we have left between now and the World Cup are just going to be friendlies. Nothing really at stake. And you get a lot more substitutions in friendlies. And usually by the 60th or 70th minute, you can't really assess your team or anything after that because you kind of loses any semblance of what a competitive match might look like. And so, anyway, the lack of qualification does hurt. I think and I'm kind of rambling here, but I think we've done a good job so far of booking opponents for us to play South Korea and Japan. That's massive. 2 very quality teams that made it to the knockout stage last time. I love seeing that. We're not playing CONCACAF opponents. I don't want to play CONCACAF opponents. Switzerland and Turkey that we played back in, I guess that was May, maybe it was early June. Excellent examples of competition. We have somebody help me out. We're going to have Ecuador and Australia that we play in October. I love having Ecuador on the schedule. And then, as far as I know, only one of the November opponents has been announced, and that's Uruguay, which is another quality CONMEBOL team. So I feel like so far they're doing a good job of booking opposition for us. And it's all we have to go on. Like we just have these friendlies left. And we're running out of time. We're running out of opportunities. And I feel like we still haven't seen the full first choice team under Pochettino. And the anxiety is that maybe we are seeing his first choice team. Maybe this is what our World Cup's going to look like under him. Maybe we're going to have Max Arfston, Tristan Blackman, and Nathan Harriel. Maybe we're not going to have Johnny Cardoso or Weston McKennie. All right. It's or Joe Scally. We do have some names missing here from September that are only due to injury. A lot of these, I think, are just coming back from injury or starting to play minutes again. Jedi Robinson, I think his spot on the team is secure, even though he's not in this camp. Pepe coming off injury, Balogun coming off injury. I think Joe Scally is also. So, and a lot of these teams have just gotten club moves, and the European seasons are just getting started. So, I hope that September is like Pochettino giving a lot of these MLS guys, a lot of these Gold Cup guys, one last chance to make an impression on them. But then, we got October, November, and after that, only 2 more windows. It's going to be time to get down to business. Like we have to put away the assessment phase. I mean, at some point, I understand he's going to be constantly assessing all the way up until the World Cup itself, but it's like he's trying to see as many different people as he can every camp. And we're running out of windows. We can't just keep doing that. At some point, he's going to have to start making decisions on his team and start getting them together and playing together. At least that's my opinion. That's the way I see it. All right. Hopefully I can get to all these questions. Let me see. Let me look through this real quick. All right. Here's one more basic question. I forget who this came from. Why don't they always just catch the ball? Why do goalkeepers sometimes punch it away? All right. So for those, I think we got a couple of new people in the chat tonight. Love having you here. One thing I do with this channel is I also do what I call Soccer 1-on-1. Not only do I want to talk about Major League Soccer, the various competitions the clubs have, and of course our national team, but also just want to go over some basic like rules, techniques, traditions of the game, just to kind of be a little bit more educational about it. So if this is a new fan asking because they're eager to learn more about the sport, I love it. Welcome to this channel. Why do goalkeepers not always catch the ball? Well, I think they would if they could, or if they had confidence that they could. Catching it is always the best option because it kills the play. right? And it resets possession. Your team's going to move up the field. You can decide how you want to redistribute it. You have that moment of complete control. But it's not always the safest or smartest technique to use, because the number one thing you got to do is keep it out of your net. And if it's coming at you hard, it's coming at you kind of far away, and you've got to make a big reach for it, or you're in a crowd, that if you try to catch it, there's a risk it's going to get through your hands, right? Or you're going to come down with the ball and it's going to hit somebody and bounce out of your hands. Ideally, you're gathering that ball up and you're not spilling it. You're not giving up a rebound. But when you're talking about high speed, or you're talking about a long reach, or you're talking about a crowded box, the number one thing you got to do is you just got to get it away. And so it's a lot easier and to be able to just get your arm to block it rather than trying to use the soft hands to catch it. And because when you're reaching, you're not gonna be able to catch it with your body, right? So it's just a matter of using instincts, because it's all split second decisions, to assess the risk of what's the best thing to do in this moment. And so it's really just that simple. You want to do the safest thing first. Ideally, you are going to catch it, gather it, not give up a rebound. But more important than that is you got to do the safest thing first. You've got to do everything you can to make sure that ball's not going to get past you, and that's it. That's it. I hope that answered it. If it doesn't, just let me know. Um, as an EPL fan, Chuck, this might have been yours. As an EPL fan, what am I overlooking in MLS soccer? Well, I would tell you that what you're overlooking is that the sense of community, or the just that regional proximity. You want something close to you. You want to feel connected to it. And I think that's even more true at lower divisions. Um, I've been to a couple of lower division matches this summer. I went to USL League Two in June. I went to a League One match in July. They're a lot of fun. They're a different experience. It's very similar to, I'd compare it to minor league baseball. If you just like baseball and you don't care about the marquee names and the star power and just want to see a good game, you go to a minor league game, you're going to spend a lot less money, a lot less stressful travel, probably a lot more casual atmosphere in the stands. You're probably, if you're not the guy heckling the team, there's probably someone within earshot that's doing it. They're easily heard on the field, right? All that kind of stuff. Um, and if so, that's what the major league provides you, is the star power. If you want to see the baseball stars, if you want to see the top names in the sport in this country, then you're going to go to the major league game. But if you just want to take in some action in a casual atmosphere and spend less money, you go to a minor league game, and you'll have a lot of fun. If you just find one near you. I guarantee you there is a USL club or USL League One or something close to you. Go check it out. The one we were at in July. That we were definitely hearing that they were heckling players. Players were heckling back, and so it very much reminded me of like a minor league baseball experience. Um, so, so what are you missing on Major League Soccer? I would say you're missing the game day experience. I mean, if you live in America, you're probably not going to English Premier League matches very often, right? Probably never. And I get you're watching it because it's the best league in the world, but for me, I just feel disconnected from it. Like I have no stake in it. So I would say go to a match. Just go to a match. And I think you'll find that you'll have a lot of fun with it. The game day experience, I think, is the best thing Major League Soccer has to offer. And the thing about the league is the parity. Like you bake in the parity. Like in so many European leagues and English Premier League, you've got the same clubs at the very top, right? And especially bad in Spain and in Germany. It's always like the same one or two clubs competing for the title. And really the only interest comes in at the Champions League level. So, I mean, I feel sorry for the fans of all the other clubs in those leagues that never realistically have a shot at winning the championship. That does not apply to Major League Soccer. There's built-in parity, and if you are a championship caliber team, enjoy it while you can. It's probably not going to last long. right? Atlanta won it all in 2018, and they're one of the worst teams in the league now. Um, on the flip side, your team may be terrible this year, but you could be just a season away from being a contender. Like it's there's no predicting it. Any team can beat any team. Um, and I think that makes the league more attractive. I mean, it should like there's no reason to feel hopeless as a fan. Like cuz there's nothing that the only thing that's stopping a club from improving quickly and being good is its own front office, whether they're not ambitious enough or they just miss on signings. But there's nothing to stop any club from being able to contend, and I think that's a good thing. All right, I had a question in the chat that came up. Daft Airplane, welcome to the chat. I don't think I've seen you before. It's awesome. Glad to have you here. Who is your personal hero growing up? I assume you're talking about soccer player. I'm gonna keep it on that unless you revise your question a little bit. So I'm a little bit older. I graduated from high school in 1989, and I was not following soccer at all at the professional level. It at any point until the 90s. So I didn't have a soccer hero while I was growing up. I started to learn about soccer in the mid 80s. Some friends of mine were playing on the local rec team or travel team. I was hearing and I remember 1986 hearing something about something called a World Cup about somebody named Diego Maradona, but I wasn't into any of it. I did end up playing for my high school 87, 88, 89. The first World Cup I ever saw was 1990. And from that point forward, I was following the U.S. national team very closely. So I can start there, right? My soccer fandom really starts with what I call the start of modern U.S. soccer history, which is when we played in the 1990 World Cup. And so, who are I'm going to interpret this as who are my favorite players in those early days of the early and mid 90s, maybe leading into the 94 World Cup. And I tell you what, during those years, 91, 92, 93, the most exciting player for me was Kobe Jones. I loved Kobe Jones. I thought Kobe Jones was a fantastic player. He was so fast. I loved watching him play, loved watching him hustle. My favorite defender was Marcelo Balboa. I love Balboa. I thought he was great. He excellent defender, never seemed to get a foot wrong, was capable of amazing bicycle kicks and had a glorious mullet. So I loved Marcelo Balboa. But all those guys, Tab Ramos, John Harkes, Eric Winalda, Bruce Murray, even though he didn't make the 94 roster, all those guys, Alexi Lalas and Tony Miola and that whole 94 team. I remember it very well. 94 was huge for me. I was 23 years old. I was all the way into that World Cup. Let's see. I'm going to keep going here. For those that are new to the chat, new to the channel, this is called Quick Kicks because I usually keep my videos short. But before I was live streaming, they're always under 15 minutes. My live streams have usually been going for less than 30, usually like 25 minutes or so. This is a unique show, this AMA. It's not always going to be like this. I'm just going to take my time and answer all these questions that come in. But that's not the norm. All right. These will always be under 30 minutes for the most part. And I do this every single Tuesday night, 9 o'clock Eastern. And I hope that you'll make a habit out of joining us here because I'm having a lot of fun doing this. I had Dayton come in with a question. Who is your dream team of active players? That's a loaded question. That's hard for me to answer unless I narrow it down a little bit. So Dayton did not specify, but I'm going to look at this once again through the lens of American soccer. Who is my dream American team out of active players? Well, that's pretty much the same as saying who's my dream team for the World Cup, right? Who would I want out of the active players to be in my starting 11? But it's also dream team. So that's going to be the ideal. So on my dream team, Gio Reyna is going to be starting in the middle of the park for me. Now, the reality that we live in, the Gio Reyna that we actually have right now, that's not who I want on the team. but I know of his talent and his potential. I'm frustrated that we're not getting that. He often seems to be his own worst enemy. And he's one of these guys you have to question his heart. Okay. But I know his talent. And so in my dream world, he's running the midfield for the United States. Okay. So my top choice right now for goalkeeper is Matt Turner. I'm really rooting for him. I'm really sad for him that he didn't get picked for this camp. I'm hoping that we will see him in October and November. Okay, across the back, Jedi Robinson on the left, Serginho Dest on the right, and Chris Richards as one of the center backs. I think these are obvious choices. I think these are realistic choices. Where the open question right now is that other center back for the pairing. Who do you put next to Richards? There's no clear good answer there. In my dream team, my imaginary ideal, I'm putting Miles Robinson just because he came up through Atlanta and I like him. I think he's a nice guy, but he's but like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's a difference between fantasy and reality. So in my fantasy, Miles Robinson is my guy. I don't know who this is going to be. We do have a new defender in this September roster. His name is, help me out, Noah Kai Banks. Never been capped before. I've never heard his name before. Turns out he plays in the Bundesliga. He plays for Augsburg. He does not start, but if you're playing in the Bundesliga, you know you can't be terrible. And I said before, I feel like as a whole, just by design, what's baked into Major League Soccer is that defenders are generally not going to be very strong. And so if we have a Bundesliga defender in the camp, I want to see what he can do. I don't know anything about Noah Kai Banks, but I hope he plays. And I don't even know if he's a center back. I hope he's a center back, and I hope he's the answer for us because we're still looking for that other center back to pair with Chris Richards. In my ideal world, I already said Reyna and Weston McKennie would be there too in the midfield along with Tyler Adams. I think Tyler Adams should be our captain. I think he's a strong leader. I think he's the right kind of leader, right kind of personality on the field. I have a lot of respect for the soccer IQ and just his whole attitude that he brings to the field. Big fan of Tyler Adams. That's the dream, right? That's the fantasy version of these players right now. Real talk. Instead of Gio Reyna, I would take Diego Luna over Gio Reyna just because of the heart and the hustle and the attitude. You got, and then to finish out this 11, Christian Pulisic and Tim Weah, I think are obvious choices for the wing. I think they're still realistic choices. I love Weah a lot. And then an open question is striker. And I put Ricardo Pepi down because, again, I like his story. He's coming off injury, so he's not in this camp. And that's kind of also, this kind of doubles as who do I want to see as the starting 11 for next year's World Cup. Most of those answers are true. Not Miles Robinson, okay? But I think the open questions for our roster are goalkeeper, one of the center back positions, whoever's going to pair with Chris Richards, and then the striker. I think those are the three biggest questions that we have when it comes to the starting 11. We have even more questions when it comes to depth, especially depth on defense. But that's what I want to see this roster solidify. I want to see Pochettino's first choice 11 start to come into clearer focus. And I want to see answers for these positions: goalkeeper, center back, and striker. We've been holding open auditions for striker for the past 4 or 5 years. No one's really stepped up and really taken control of that. This camp, we have Josh Sargent coming in. He plays in the English Championship for Norwich City, and he's playing well. I wish him the best. I want to see what he can do. He's also someone who depends on good service. And one of the glaring weaknesses I see in this roster that came out today, I don't see any strong central playmakers. You look at this midfield group that was announced today, I don't see any strong playmakers. I don't know if Sargent or whoever is at striker is going to get the service that he needs. I'll wrap it up with this. I'm not wrapping up the stream unless y'all say we're done. But to wrap up the answer on this question, as far as dream team of active players, I'll just give you a few extra thoughts on feel good stories. All right. These are guys that I'm rooting for in terms of possibly playing for the United States, just because I like him as people and I wish him the best. Diego Luna. I think we all were Diego Luna this summer in the Gold Cup. I think the whole country seemed to fall in love with him. I absolutely love his whole attitude and energy. I want to see Sebastian Berhalter take full advantage of his opportunities. I don't know if he's really at an international level right now. I kind of doubt that he is, to be honest. But I find myself rooting for him. I want to see him continue to develop and become a great player. Lucho Acosta, who has bounced around Major League Soccer and was MVP, I think, or at least a contender at MVP a couple years ago. He has been working on his citizenship. I think he's naturalized now, and it's been a goal of his for a while to play for the United States, and I find myself rooting for him. I want to see him get opportunities with our national team, and the same goes for Julian Gressel. He's someone who did get his naturalization completed. He has now appeared for the United States. He was in the January camp, which is Camp Cupcake. It's kind of just that extra camp for the fringe players in the player pool. But he's someone that, as far as I'm concerned, is an excellent player. I saw him at Atlanta. He's bounced around the league. He's excellent at wingback. He's excellent anywhere along the right side. He's a great crosser of the ball. And I'm just pulling for him. Those are the guys that I find myself rooting for. So I'm looking at my list of questions that came in. I got one more. It says, why did you, all right, this is calling me out on a comment I made in an earlier video a week or two ago. Why did you say that Leagues Cup becomes an easy path to CONCACAF? Okay, I'm not quite sure the context there, but I would imagine that what I meant by that is Major League Soccer regular season, you either have to win the Supporter Shield or the whole league in order to get a CONCACAF spot. And the Leagues Cup has 3 up for grabs, and it's a much shorter tournament. And we're now in the final stages of the tournament. Like I probably said this at the quarterfinal stage. We're at the semifinal stage. At this point, it's easier to finish top 3 in the Leagues Cup than to play out the league and hope to get Supporter Shield or to win the MLS Cup championship. Like that's a lot harder. So like for LA Galaxy, my Galaxy that I'm rooting for in the Leagues Cup, they're still alive. They're in the semifinals. They're at the bottom of the table in the Western Conference. They have no chance at any hardware in league play. But now they're sitting on the verge of a CONCACAF thing. So when you're in a tournament, it's a shorter path. There's fewer games you have to win to end up with a CONCACAF berth. Competition's tough and it's single elimination, right? No margin for error. One loss and you're out. Forget it. With the regular season, you can afford losses and you have opportunities to bounce back. So it's tougher in that sense. But in terms of the length of your path and the number of games you need to win and the number of spots available, that's why I said that. Okay. I feel like, let's see, Daft Airplane. Glad I came by and watched. Great seeing people on YouTube talk about their passion. Thanks for coming by. I think I'm getting close to the end of this. If anybody has any questions, ask them now in the chat. We're going to dig next week. So tomorrow night is Leagues Cup semifinals, and this final is on Sunday. So we can talk a little Leagues Cup next week, but also the players should be in camp for the U.S. We're playing Korea in Red Bull Stadium, I think, in New Jersey on September 6th. The game will be on HBO Max, and we will definitely we can get more into the roster. We can get more into our thoughts of this, and I encourage dialogue. Thanks for showing up in the chat. I love seeing new names here. I hope that you will come hang out with me in the future every single Tuesday night, 9:00 Eastern. I think that's going to wrap it up. I hope you're going to watch some Leagues Cup with me. Hope you're going to watch some Major League Soccer with me. And I can't wait to see what happens with U.S. men's national team. Watch some soccer with me. And I will talk to you next time.